Porter's model of how competitive forces shape strategy provides a framework for us to understand the industry dynamics of competition and our position within it. At the heart of the model is the industry itself. Porter described this as players jockeying for position, the intensity of competition that already exists between organizations currently active in the market. This can be represented by pricing tactics, such as the supermarket's buy one get one free offers, frequent new product introductions and developments, or high levels of marketing. The level of rivalry is high when markets are mature and growth rates are slow. There are lots of active players or a number of similarly sized and powerful players. There's not much difference between the products offered by each player, or products have a shelf life that encourages price discounting. But competition goes beyond those direct competitors already active in the market. New players in the industry will change market dynamics, putting downward pressure on prices and profits. The threat of new entrants will depend on the barriers to entry and the likely response of existing players. Barriers can include regulations or license requirements, patents and proprietary technology, the cost of required equipment and facilities, or economies of scale in, for example, production or research and development. Similarly, heavy investment in marketing to create brand loyalty and product differentiation will deter new entrants, as they will need to accept the high costs associated with setting up in direct competition or accept a disadvantage. High barriers to entry and expected retaliation from existing players will result in a low threat of new entrants. Interestingly, high barriers to entry may also represent high barriers to exit. If a player cannot easily recoup the investment in facilities that they've made, it may be better to stay in competition, even when operating at a loss, than to lose the investment. This can have the effect of increasing competitive rivalry. As well as new entrants to our own industry, adjacent markets may offer attractive alternatives that serve the same purpose. Substitute products and services can limit the potential of an industry by changing the pricing structure or demand for its products. For example, dairy producers facing increased costs may not be able to increase the price of butter, as customers may switch to margarine as a cheaper alternative. The more attractive the price and performance trade-off offered by a substitute, the greater the pressure on the industry's profit potential. Substitutes can sometimes come into play when a change in the competitive forces of an adjacent industry causes a price reduction or improvement in performance of their offerings. Substitutes can also become attractive when there are changes in social trends that result in a greater desire for a substitute product. The bargaining power of suppliers will depend on a number of factors and the size of the supply market relative to the industry. Suppliers with strong bargaining positions will be able to affect our profitability by raising their prices or lowering the quality of their products. Supplier power is high when there are only a few suppliers, when their product is unique or differentiated, when the cost of switching to an alternative supplier is high or it's inconvenient, when there are no alternative products available, or when the industry is not an important market to the supplier. In a similar way, the bargaining power of customers can affect the competitive dynamics at play. Customers with high power can negotiate lower prices or force increased service levels and product quality, which will normally increase our costs and reduce profitability. Buyer power is high when the value or volume of their purchases from the industry is relatively high. They're able to switch to a competitor's product quickly and easily, or they're not dependent upon the product being purchased. Buyer power is also increased if they're price sensitive. For example, if the industry product represents a high proportion of their own costs. Power is also increased if the buyer can integrate backwards and acquire their own source of supply. The forces that govern competition are constantly in flux, and the relative importance of each changes as a result. Understanding the underlying characteristics and sources of competition will allow us to develop strategies to improve our position. Our strategy should focus on the strongest competitive force, which will determine industry profitability. For example, even if we have a strong position in the industry with little threat from potential entrants, we will still face lower profits if a lower cost substitute is available. In this case, our strategic priority becomes managing the impact of the substitute product. Porter's 5 forces model of competition is not only helpful to developing strategy, but by changing our perspective, we can use it to gain insights into our own bargaining power as a buyer. in which case the competitive rivalry is not that of our own industry, but that of the supplier's industry. Or we can adopt an external perspective, so that the industry becomes a potential target market. This can be very useful for the development of marketing strategies. By understanding the forces governing competition in our potential customers' market, we gain insights into their own pain points or where we can create value for them. To misquote Porter, the essence of strategy formulation is understanding competition.